Hi everybody, my name is Paul Dwyer, I'm CEO of CyberRisk International, and today I'd like to talk to you about what I call information distancing. So as we all deal with the global pandemic and the challenge that is COVID-19, we see that the cyber threat actors, such as cyber criminals, are taking advantage of this situation. It's quite obvious from their past campaigns that they have no ethics and no morals, and they're using COVID-19 as a hook in order to carry out their scams and their phishing attacks and their invoice fraud and so on. The good news is that with some basic cyber hygiene controls in, such as patching, such as strong passwords and so on, you can thwart most of their attacks and keep your staff obviously highly educated and highly vigilant. But what I want to talk to you today is something a little bit different. So when I talk about information distancing, let's consider the fact that we're all looking for updates. We're all looking for information about COVID-19. We all want guidance. We all want to find out where the good news is. We have to keep our finger on the pulse of the bad news, unfortunately, as well. But as we do this, we have to be very careful about where we're sourcing our information. You have to be very careful about how much of this information we're taking on, because we essentially just don't want to melt our heads at the end of the day. We're taking on so many different sources. And those sources, remind me of the parallels with cyber intelligence. When we look at cyber intelligence itself, there are thousands and thousands of areas you can go for information for cyber threat intelligence. However, we often refer to this just as noise, because that's what it is. Actionable intelligence is actually, the good information you want. You want to get actionable information. That's good quality core information, intelligence that you can use. The kind of information that we're getting from the HSE, from the Irish government as well, and internationally we see this on the stage as well, with different governments coming up with different strategies on how to get the information out to their citizens and so on. So we have to be very careful with this kind of information and how it's going out. And we see these parallels not just in relation to cyber intelligence, but actually with information warfare. So if we look at PSYOPs, that's psychological operations, or basically the military techniques on how information can be controlled and the messaging can be controlled in order to control the emotions of a population. And, many of us would become very familiar with terms like psychographic segmentation when we looked at Cambridge Analytica and how they were actually using your data in Facebook with algorithms in order to convince you of the message of their sponsors and what they wanted to get across there. So these kind of techniques are obviously open. They're still being used by lots of different organizations around the world, lots of different groups, lots of different threat actor groups in order to convince you of certain things. And some of these may have a geopolitical nature, as I say. Some of them may be just sick people wanting to put out this kind of misinformation, maybe to embarrass a country, a political foe. It could be just to stir it up. Who knows what their motivations are, but the results are quite clear. We're seeing cases after cases of very vulnerable people that have fallen for this information essentially and paid with their ultimate price, paid with their life. We've seen people that have been drinking bleach. We've seen people that have been eating aquarium tablets. Aquarium cleaning tablets, that they believed that malaria drug was in those cleaning tablets, and unfortunately they didn't make it through that. But obviously over this weekend we've also seen people attacking 5G towers, communication towers, because they believed a conspiracy theory online that these towers were being used by the Chinese government to propagate COVID-19 around the world. So this sounds fantastical, it sounds almost ludicrous, but the problem is that we can all become a contagion in this, a contagion factor, because we can spread this information. We can start forwarding it on to people and almost give it credibility by doing that. So my message to you is maybe to information distance. Only get your information from credible sources. Credible sources are doctors, scientists, people like the Irish government that are putting that information out clearly every evening on the 9 o'clock news, or depending on what country you're in, you get it from your national source of credible, validated information. Not from sources that may have a political agenda or another motive in why they're putting out that kind of messaging. So be very careful where you're getting this information from, and don't overload. I mean, the last thing you want to do is, as I say, melt your head with this kind of information. Take it on. It's a lot to take on and burden psychologically yourself with trying to process this kind of information. So what I would say is limit yourself on the amount you take it in, but certainly if something isn't true, if it's not validated, please don't be forwarding it, because what we're seeing is, as I say, that those physical kinetic attacks on the likes of the 5G towers, and I think our first responders are already too busy and they don't need to be going and dealing with those things. So look, my message is clear. We need to be taking up the advice we've already been given, which is good information in relation to social distancing. We need to obviously wash our hands, and now please, information distance. So thank you, and please stay safe. Cheers.